How's your mindset? How is your mindset? Because our mindset determines our happiness, it determines our future, it determines our impact on others and those who we love. Well, my guest today, Lloyd Glauberman, has a 40-year career in psychology and a doctorate in psychology, and he talks about mindset and how to make adjustments so that you can form great habits. We'd go deep into the subject of sleep and how important sleep is, and overall, just how to change your life and your way of thinking in a more positive fashion. It's a really helpful episode, and Lloyd is just the nicest guy you're ever going to meet. And I thoroughly enjoyed the interview. As always, this episode is sponsored by ThriveMore Autopilot. If you have a brick and mortar business that is in wellness, health, or fitness, and you're looking to turn more leads into paying customers, then go to thrivemore.ai. That's thrivemore.ai. Enjoy the episode. On this episode, I'm sitting down with Lloyd Glauberman. Lloyd is a clinical psychologist with over 40 years of expertise in behavioral, mindset, and emotional health. As the creator of Hypno-Peripheral processing, or HPP, a clinically validated audio method to reprogram self-limiting patterns, and as the founder of the Lifestyle Intelligence app, Lloyd combines cutting-edge psychology, micro-habits, and AI to help people optimize how they eat, move, and think. His science-based programs have helped over 125,000 people, making him a trusted voice in bridging psychology and performance. Lloyd's approach goes beyond quick fixes, and he focuses on rewiring behavior from the inside out through intentional, sustainable habit change. Lloyd, welcome to the ThriveMore podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You betcha.
I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. Me too. You know, your intro was a mouthful because you have so much experience, and you are making a change in so many people's lives. What inspired you to dedicate 40 years to studying behavior, mindset, emotional health? And was there kind of a defining moment that has shaped your approach?
I remember when I graduated college, which goes back a long time, like 1969. My rock and roll career failed, so I had to do something.
Yeah.
So I had just graduated. I'm walking down the street, and
we're gonna pause right there.
Okay.
I'm a musician too. Used to play in rock bands in my 20s. I just have to hear the real abridged short story of your rock and roll career failing. What?
Well, we had a reasonably good average band,
Yeah.
but we were not the average white band.
I love it.
If you know what I mean, because
Yeah.
they were sensational.
They were huge.
And we were not.
Gotcha.
We had an opportunity at the bitter end to actually have people from record labels come and listen to us, because one of the guys in the band, his mom was going out with a PR person who knew people. So they all came to watch. 3 minutes into the set, I said to myself, Lloyd, you are not going to be a rock star. I'm serious. 3 minutes in, I said, it's time to start thinking about something else. So I'm walking down the street 2 weeks after that, and I noticed mental health center. Okay. It was in Boston, where I had gone to school. And I said to myself, oh, maybe there's a job available. So I go in, walk upstairs, see a woman. I said, are there any jobs available now? And she said, did you graduate college? I said, yeah. She said, when? I said, 2 weeks ago. She said, okay, when can you start? I'm serious. She didn't know, and she didn't know my name. She hired me. I said, oh, okay, I'll do this. So I get there and I start working, and people started coming up to me and said, you might be pretty good at doing this stuff. At that moment in time, I was in the process of getting married. I said to my wife, maybe I should go back to graduate school and do that. And eventually things evolved, and here we are.
Oh my gosh.
It's a wacky story, but every bit of it is true.
I love it. I love it. And so you went back to graduate school to get really a degree then in...
I ended up getting a doctorate from Syracuse.
Yeah.
My wife and I moved down here in 1976, I believe. And I started my practice. And from there, I started getting involved in learning hypnosis and all the other kinds of things that were happening at the time. And I took a hypnosis workshop where they introduced the most unusual thing I had ever seen. It was called the double induction, where two people spoke simultaneously to one subject. And while that was happening on stage, I found myself going into a slightly altered state of consciousness because you're trying to process two trains of thought because they were saying different things at different times. And I realized that was a very unique way of getting people out of everyday stuff. From that moment on, which that was in the 80s at this point, I'd already been practicing a bit. And I said to myself, okay, I think I have an idea that nobody has done before, which take this idea, the double induction, and put it on audio cassette, because that's what we were using back then.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So I slowly got involved, did it, made some tapes. Some of them are not good, some of them are not so good. And finally, I got to the point where I understood how to do it. And that evolved into a very successful career at selling that product to the public in conjunction with using it with my patients,
Yeah.
which gave me hands-on information as to were these effective? How were they effective? How could they make you a more useful person, both to yourself and with the other people who interact with you? So that's a brief description.
Yeah. Is this then is this HPP, is this hypno-peripheral processing?
Yes, because the whole idea was to provide a context that gently removed you from listening, and then take the words and the phrases from the two stories themselves, link them together so you get in the context of all of this two voices simultaneously telling you stories, distinct presentations of changes you want to make. For instance, and this was one of those moments in time when I said, Lloyd, maybe this is useful. A friend of mine was doing workshops with all the kinds of new gadgets and ideas back in the self-help days, okay, that started in the 70s and the 80s. And he said, Lloyd, would you bring your stuff to my workshop on Saturday? We'll have everybody listen, and then you can talk with them about what you're doing. I said, sure, Mike, be glad to do it. So we get there, and I brought an assertiveness tape, okay, which had all the ideas about how to go about being more assertive in your life.
Yeah.
Everybody listened to it, lasted about 28, 30 minutes, stopped, everybody took their headphones off, and now there was going to be a discussion. So Mike asked people, okay, what did you experience? Was this useful? And most people all said the same thing. Wow, I didn't know what was going on, but I got very relaxed. It made me feel better. Okay. Then there was a pause as if it were over. And then I said, is there anybody else who wants to say something? A woman from the last row, sitting way at the top, stood up and said, you know, this got me very relaxed too. And then she paused and said, oh my God, that's the first time I ever talked in a group in my life. And I'm
Wow.
said to myself, there's a God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because to have that happen in public, for
Yeah.
somebody to say that, I said to myself, okay, this has some value. Let's continue doing it and do it with different kinds of issues as to what people might need in their life. Procrastination, time management, relationships, all the kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And it ended up being very useful.
So I recently went to an NLP course and like a 4-day retreat.
I did the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I love it. I'm fascinated with neuro linguistic programming, and I was put into trance for the first time I think in my life ever, which it was different than I thought it would be. You know, hypnosis it felt different than I thought. It was more of just a deep, calm, relaxing, light sleep almost. But I could hear everything and was aware. But what I really learned from that workshop is that it's our subconscious that is running the show. It's our subconscious. We think it's our conscious mind, but it's our subconscious mind that is running everything. And so I just want to have a better understanding, because I'm just super curious about this. Is HPP then you're telling a story, telling another story, because there's dissonance. Finally, your conscious mind just says, I give up. I can't follow this. And then your subconscious mind starts to pull the messaging out of it. Is that?
Precisely, because actually, even though you're listening to stories, actual stories, adult fairy tales,
Sure.
right? All that kind of wacky kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? But within the context of that, there are distinct messages, anywhere from 2 to 6 words, that when they occur, that's all you hear,
Mm.
right? And the way that I do that, and I will tell the secret here because this is the context for that. You cross the message over from one story to the other. The first time that happened, I was reviewing something that I had recorded. And as I'm listening, I suddenly hear the following. In one story, the last word in the sentence was feel. In the other story, the first word that you heard was better. So all you heard was at that moment, feel better. You don't know you heard that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you heard that because you process, as we know, we process all kinds of things outside of awareness sometimes, but we do process it.
Oh, yeah.
So I keep it very, very simple, very positive, and structure anywhere from 30 to 35 of those within the context of every 25-minute program.
And then how often would someone need to listen to that program for, for the effect to really sink in? And I don't want to say,
It's
yeah,
useful to go through things for a few weeks. If you can listen
okay.
every day, but obviously you don't want to stress yourself out in terms of forcing something into the rhythm of your life. There'll always be, even if it's right before you go to bed.
Yeah.
Now, you might fall asleep because these things can get you really deep. And by the way, one of the things that they do, and this is something that I had no understanding of at all before I got involved with this, and that is the state in between waking and sleep.
Mm.
It's magical. However, as we all know, you only recognize it for about 15 or 20 seconds before you're gone. So the question is, how do you utilize the hypnagogic state, which is what it's called? And I actually had a guy who used to do that kind of thing with brainwave stuff, have people come in to where he was working, lie down, put the headphones on, and then have their brains monitored. Okay. And sure enough, these programs were getting people into that state, but for an extended period of time. Right. So it's one of those things where it's incredibly powerful, but how do you get there? Well, this is one way to get there, as well as you really get relaxed in a way that's useful. So the whole idea with my programs is to help you with alpha, beta, theta, delta, all the four brainwave states. If you can activate all of them, if you can get people thinking about what to do appropriately, if you can get them into relaxed states every day, the alpha state, that's where people meditate and do yoga, is to get into that state. And then there is this magical place, which is the theta state we just talked about. And then there's the most important thing we do, and I can't emphasize this enough, sleep.
Yeah.
People just don't get that. It's a waste of time. Come on, sleeping. I don't need to sleep that much. Really? Okay, it's your choice. It wasn't until 2017 that I fully understood just how important sleep was. Because I think, okay, we need memories, all the memory formation while we're sleeping, all of that stuff, that made sense to me. But I had no idea that during sleep, the brain cleaned itself. And I read that and I read it again. I said, I'm not going to say out loud what I said to myself. I meant, holy, oh my goodness. And all of that cerebrospinal fluid pours into the brain. And then the dishwasher effect goes on. And I'm thinking, oh my, what happens if you don't get enough sleep? And then, hello, Alzheimer's disease and all other kinds of dementia that everybody worries about. Sleep is the one way, it doesn't guarantee anything, but you want everything stacked in your favor
Yeah.
when it comes to getting older. Being
Well,
older, I understand that right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and all the experts are saying that adequate sleep, and not 4 hours a night, but adequate, I can't say that word, adequate sleep, 7 to 8 hours for the average person is just like table stakes. It's the most important thing that you can do. Like every expert influencer that, that health influ is they're all saying the same thing. So what you're saying is right on track. Yeah.
Right now, the single most important health issue in my mind is the fact that we have 13 million high school students, public high school students, who have to get to school to start at 8 o'clock. Some of these schools start at 7:30.
Yeah.
Now, okay, you immediately know
I
where
know
this
exactly.
is going,
Yeah.
right? Right?
I
Okay.
raised two teen. I mean, they're grown now, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. So here we go. You've got, okay. So in order to get enough sleep, now teenagers are going through growth spurts at this moment in time. So they need more sleep than most adults. So figure while the average adult can get about 7.5, they're going to need 9 to 10 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Okay. So how much, when do they have to get up in the morning to get to school by 8 o'clock? They have to get up about 6 to 6:30. Okay. Which means they have to go to bed somewhere around 9 o'clock. Okay. All right. We know where this is ending up. What's the probability of that happening in the midst of digital addiction?
Zero.
Zero. There are
Yeah.
very few things in life that are absolute zero. This is one of them. So
Yeah.
you've got 13 million kids sleep deprived. What does sleep deprivation do? And this is the whole idea with lifestyle intelligence. When you get wrecked, when your sleep is wrecked, every aspect of your life becomes a mess. The obvious. You can't think clearly. Okay, so the IQ that you have is now a 2-digit IQ. It's not 3 digits, right? You get edgy and angry because you're sleep deprived, right? Then, and this is the one that really needs to be talked about more, sleep deprivation leads to overeating because the brain needs more energy, not because people are irresponsible with that. They can't help themselves because their brain is saying, we need to eat more, Dodo, because we don't have enough sleep. So there we go. So we get all of these things are baked into the same cake for teenagers, right? So what do? We call overweight a disease and treat them with a drug. Does life get any stupider than that?
Yeah.
No, no, it really doesn't. And people are they just accept that. Oh, that's okay. I've got an illness. But especially with young kids, because you start them young in this state of mind and body, and all the degenerative diseases that don't start happening till 40 and 50, that's going to start happening in the early 30s.
Yeah. We're
And the
seeing that. We're seeing
catastrophic
that.
event on health, I like health. If none of these other things make any difference to you, think about the amount of money it's going to cost everybody because of the amount of physical dysfunction that we're going to have to treat based on the idiocy that we've set up for these kids via cultural idiocy.
This segment is sponsored by Rockbox Fitness Franchising. Take control of your destiny and join the boutique fitness revolution with Rockbox Fitness. If you're ready to make a real impact in your community and own your own business that empowers people to achieve their best life, then Rockbox is the opportunity you've been looking for. They provide comprehensive support from site selection, upfit, training, and turnkey marketing, so you can open your studio with confidence and a strong recurring revenue member base. Visit rockboxfitness.com and click on franchise opportunities to learn more about this exciting venture in the fast-growing boutique fitness industry. It's time to turn your passion for fitness and for business into a thriving venture. As a psychologist, you've treated so many patients and helped them. I can only imagine that from the younger people, the teenagers, I mean, probably even people in their 40s, whatever, that that you're seeing the effects of social media through your work with your clients.
The most powerful hypnotic trance of all time is this.
Yeah,
Looking at this. It's not looking up. It's not, no, that digital addiction thing, you can't be more hypnotized. And I mean that in a literal sense,
yeah,
because once you're zoned in on something, the rest of the world disappears,
yeah.
right? And how are we going to get out of this mess, right? What can happen to change, to reorganize things? And obviously, kids are beginning to realize that actually getting some distance from this stuff is important. As the kids who had their phones taken away at school, and then they began to realize that then they had to interact with their friends,
Yeah.
and they realized, oh, I really missed that. How can we get more of that rebaked into the culture? I don't know,
Yeah.
but it has to happen because this digital stuff, that it's not stopping. Right.
And I just can't imagine growing up now where, if you didn't get invited to a party or something when you were younger, you didn't know. You didn't know. Or maybe you heard about it on Monday and you felt a little bad, but you certainly didn't get a front row seat to where you weren't, and where you didn't get invited to. And just, man, I think just the pressures of being young with everybody being so open with their lives. One, you're comparing, comparison is the thief, or what is it? Comparison is the thief of joy, because you're always social media by itself is a comparative tool. And I feel for these kids because they don't get to have their own voice. They're trying to mimic other people, it seems like.
We used to have a concept called self-esteem,
Yeah.
what you felt about yourself, about how you are in social situations, right? As in terms of the skill set that you have. Well, as far as I can tell, self-esteem doesn't exist anymore. It's been supplanted by selfie esteem, which is how many times you can get your photo out there in the world.
Yeah.
So now it's not, I have low self-esteem. No, I have low selfie esteem. I
Yeah.
don't have enough pictures of myself or things that I've said out there.
Yeah.
I really,
It's
we're
there's
in
and
trouble. We're in
we
serious trouble.
are. We are. Well, if we just take a half a step back to like HPP and the positive change that makes, how, habits, there's 21 days to a habit or 42 days. There's all kinds of different, stacking habits. Um, but how do people make that behavioral change a permanent change in their life versus a quick fix or something that fades, gradually over time?
The thing I tell people that I think is singularly the most important thing that you could ever learn is that change is not a straight line. It's not going to be, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to continue doing it. I can't fall back because if I fall back, that means I failed and I have to start all over again. So if you have the model of it's actually important to fail all the time. No, I'm sorry. It's hard to fail some of the time so that you can come back from it and prove to yourself that you can get back on track. That's it. That's an incredibly important skill to have because who gets it right all the time? The best hitters in the world strike out sometimes and have terrible days or weeks, right? But they get back the groove, right? The whole idea is what happens most of the time. And if you install that and notice that you can come back, then you can string this thing out for a longer period of time before you realize it's installed and it'll stay installed at that. I mean, I know it from my own experience
Yeah.
because I did everything wrong for a while and I understand how easy it is to put on weight. It's,
Sure.
yeah, oh no, it was amazing. I grew up in the 50s and 60s where idiocy was the norm when it came to food because there was no information.
Sure.
So who knew? So I was easily at that time 25, 30 pounds heavier than I should have been.
Yeah.
But I found out later on how important movement is accidentally. My wife and I moved to California. We lived in Los Angeles. I'm driving a car now. I don't realize that I'm not moving as much. So over the course of the year, I gained an additional 20 pounds without knowing it at all. Because when you gain weight, there's nothing visceral about it. You can see it after a while, but you don't feel any of it happening in real time. And it was only till somebody pointed this out to me, an old friend who came to visit, right? That thank you for insulting me. That I never wanted to hear that again. And that set into motion changes that I made, but had nothing to do with what I was going to do with my career later on, which turned out to be so much of what we're talking about now. How to introduce information to people so they understand how important this is. And here's some ways to go about changing it. So the way my app is set up is every day you listen to a 3-minute segment, like I'm talking to you right now, explaining something that's really important. 3 minutes, the perfect amount of time to introduce an idea and then let them sit with it, because every day there'll be something slightly different. Then the combination of the cognitive information and letting it sit in your head, coupled with the reinforcement and relaxation that you get listening to the HPP programs, allows you to use the entirety of your brain to be able to absorb information, utilize the information, reflect on what's going on, and sustain something for a long enough period of time so that it takes. Have it take a little bit of time to get moving, just like bad behavior takes a while for you to think about,
Yeah.
oh, wow, this really is bad. On the upside, it works the same way.
Well, I think we've kind of morphed into lifestyle intelligence. So, um, and of course, you have an app for this, but LQ, as you've named it, define lifestyle intelligence for us.
Lifestyle intelligence is something that we were born with. Okay. What do infants do? Their entire
They learn.
life is eating, sleeping, and moving.
Yeah.
They will let us know what they need at that any period of time, but that's the totality of their existence. Sensation was cognition at
Mm,
that time for the infants.
yeah.
So they don't have any problems. We're born with this intel. This is our central intelligence agency, right? And we were born with this information, right? When we're hungry, when we're tired, when we need to move, we just do it. Then over time, we get enveloped in our families, and each family has its own trance state. And I remember my trance state because my mom loved to see me eat. It made her feel fulfilled as a mom. And she was a lovely woman and a great mom. Unfortunately for me, I had to eat a lot more than I wanted to just to keep her smiling without a single glimmer of understanding of what I was doing until years later when I reflected back on my life and realized, oh my, I was doing this to make my mom happy. I walk into the house at 3:30 after school. What do you want to eat? Not, do you want something to eat? So, okay, I'll have a
Yeah.
salami sandwich. Was I
Sure.
hungry? No. Was I going to eat dinner 3.5 hours later? Of course, because why? I can't disappoint my mom,
Yeah.
right? Years later, when I had gone through a complete transformation and my life was different, and my wife and I were visiting my mom in Florida, and she said, Do you want me to make that chocolate cake I used to make for you when you were a kid?" "Mom, I don't eat that stuff anymore." My mom got angry,
Wow.
really. See, like, I had now abandoned her.
Yeah.
I insulted her, I abandoned her. She couldn't be the mom that she used to be for me, and she was a wonderful mom,
Yeah.
but life was different then, and I remember saying to myself, "Oh my."
Yeah. You said something, wow, that's really powerful. I hope the listeners heard that, is that every family has a trance state, or a state of trance. And, for the listeners, trance is just kind of this zone we get into where we're acting unconsciously.
You're correct.
Yeah. And probably that's a layman's definition, but man, every family, it's either the trance is chaos and yelling and screaming. The trance is we don't talk about bad things. We push it all under the rug. And but you're right. Every family is dialed into a certain trance state that becomes the comfort zone, whether it's healthy or not. And usually it's not.
And
Yeah.
some of it gets really incredibly unique.
Yeah.
And I remember one day, I I like watching people. So walking around New York, there's a lot of people to watch.
Sure.
So you're behind people, and I watched adults and their younger children. And the first thing that I noticed was it's amazing how a child could learn how to walk exactly like a parent, right?
Yeah.
The same pace, the same body movement. I'll say, how does the brain do that? Because it's not even watching it,
Yeah.
right? But the intuition of the body, right? But I remember watching a mom and her daughter, and the little kid was the same shape as the mom. And
Mm.
people said, well, that's genetics. I said, no, that's not genetics. That's learning. And primarily, the mom knew just how much extra food to put on the kid's plate to make sure the kid would look like her so she wouldn't be alone. So much of that stuff happens completely outside of awareness. And it happens so often and so early in life that you don't notice it. But when you do, your brain just like lights up like, oh my goodness gracious. But I'll tell you how crazy modeling can be. All right. I, I cannot imagine I would have been able to learn this, but I did. Okay. And it wasn't good. I set that up in the wrong way. Okay. My wife and I were having a disagreement years ago. Okay. The back and forth thing, nothing getting out of control, but we're a little bit edgy with each other. Okay. And I'm sitting there kind of annoyed. All right. And I'm sitting opposite the mirror in our living room. So every so often I was able to glance at myself. So I notice my facial expression. Okay. What did I see? The one expression that my father had that I despised. And I said to myself, while I'm talking to my wife, I need an exorcist. I got to get this thing out of there because it's spooked me like in no other ways. It's like, how in the world did aside from what it was, how in the world do you do that?
Yeah.
Because you're not seeing what you've just learned and have no attachment to any of it. At that moment in time, I said to myself, our brains are catastrophically great or awful,
Yeah.
depending on what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I have certainly mirrored some of my father's behavior that I don't care to mirror. And I
Welcome
see
to
it
the
and I'm like,
club. We're all
yeah,
in the same
like,
club.
wow. I mean, just it's crazy. Well, tell me about the LQ app then, because this is really you've integrated, psychology and some micro habits, but there's also AI. If I understand it correctly, there's AI involved as well to help people improve, their daily life. So talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, it's not in the traditional kind of AI. It's just the way everything is presented
Yeah.
is unique, right? And it taps into all the skill sets that you have that you don't know you have. So, assuming somebody is very committed to make changes in their life, especially when it comes to lifestyle, this organizes it for you and it taps into every part of your mind and brain to give you the opportunity to make changes in ways that you would not have thought possible before. Right. So it's just structured in ways that are useful, entertaining, and hopefully you'll say to yourself, I like the person who I am now becoming because I've been on both ends of the continuum. So I know it all. I've made every mistake that you can make, and now I don't make as many.
You know, when my favorite quote of Winston Churchill is, "Wisdom is the knowledge you acquire the moment after you needed it."
Oh, that's good. I
That's
never heard that quote
yeah,
before.
I read his biography, I don't know, a year ago or so, and I mean, it's full of them, but that one stuck out to me like, wow, that is truly wisdom. Yeah. Well, let's talk about. I do want to ask you about AI because I actually had a colleague who typed me a text. She's like, "I'm gonna have a therapy session with ChatGPT tonight," and she was being serious, and I've read that there's a large section of young people that are using ChatGPT as their therapist, if you will, which I think could cause some issues. But also, I'd rather than be talking to something or somebody than not talking.
And this
S-
ChatGPT is not giving you a visual image of anybody. It is simply writing something out on the
yeah,
screen for you. Okay.
yeah,
The way artificial intelligence works with things like that is it takes all the knowledge that is available,
yep,
listens to what your storyline is, and obviously has nothing in the game in terms of their own life,
sure,
right?
sure,
Because that's what happens when therapy goes amok, is when the therapist is suddenly tapped into parts of him or herself that they don't realize are being tapped into, and they're providing information and suggestions that are completely useless or maybe even dangerous. Right. So the value is that AI is going to probably give you useful information. So on one level, you can say, what's the downside? Right. But I got to tell you, going forward, the probability is there will be somebody sitting in a chair opposite you having a conversation with you, an artificially intelligent individual. So you won't be able to tell the difference. What about family therapy, where, let's say, you can create your mom, your dad, or your siblings, and then you in the real time can now interact with all of them, and your parents are now enlightened in ways that you could never have imagined.
Mm.
And they're talking directly to you because it will evolve that way.
Yeah.
Eventually, it will be like the holodeck on the Enterprise,
Yeah.
right? Where you
Yeah.
will be able, so the environment will be all inclusive, immersive. That's going to be strange territory. But my
Yeah.
guess is we'll get there,
Yeah.
because why not? Therapists at that point, real therapists, will be the guides.
Yeah.
The therapy will be done by the artificial intelligence. The guides will help make sure that what should be happening is happening, and not any sidebar kinds of things that are disruptive.
Yeah.
That's what I think is going to happen.
Wow, I hadn't really thought about that, but like, I mean, I can see what you're saying. Almost recreate this visual home environment and kind of work your stuff out with these holograms, and but have it be guided by AI so that, it goes in the right direction. Because if not, you're trying to work all this out in your head or through talk therapy, which can work, but
Think what's going on in your brain
yeah,
as it would be processing that.
yeah.
Like, wait a minute, he never act that way. Wait a minute, wait, but you will like it. My guess is
Yeah,
it will be useful, and
yeah,
if it changes you a little bit, it might continue on. Well, anyway,
yeah,
but that's what I think is going to be happening.
yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, I can see that. I can absolutely see that, because that'd almost be the express train to healing, because you can work it out in this real, quasi real environment. Yeah. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by ThriveMore Autopilot. The latest data shows a large amount of small to mid-sized business owners are living paycheck to paycheck, and that is not why you started a business in the first place. We all start businesses to create the freedom in our lives that we want and to give us options. But to do that, you need more leads, and you need to turn those prospects into long-term paying customers. Well, the solution is ThriveMore Autopilot. ThriveMore Autopilot is the turnkey solution to take the stress and the hard work out of new customer acquisition, which is the lifeblood of any small business. ThriveMore Autopilot works on your behalf to generate a waterfall of new leads through various channels, to nurture those leads with proprietary AI solutions that mimic human interaction, to sell memberships and help you increase your monthly recurring revenue, and they even provide you coaching and your team coaching on the most effective sales techniques and give you a community of other like-minded business owners. ThriveMore Autopilot is how you scale your business without stress and the relentless phone calls and texts and reach outs to the prospects to get them to show up for that first appointment or to show up to that call. So learn how ThriveMore Autopilot can help you win big by going to thrivemore.ai. That's thrivemore.ai. ThriveMore Autopilot, the strategic partner for small to mid-sized business owners to help you scale and live the life of your dreams. Are there any myths about mindset or emotional health that you encounter, in your work, where people have these, this something that, it's a limiting belief probably, but a myth around their emotional health, or even the power of their mindset?
Nothing in particular comes to mind
Yeah,
with the way anybody might have said something to me that's totally distorted and stuff like that.
yeah,
I mean, in terms of their own lives and their being able to understand a situation where they'll talk about an emotional state that they're really angry about something.
yeah,
Okay. And I'll say, and anger is an all-purpose emotion. And a lot of time, anger is not anger. there's something underneath anger that you're having trouble coming to terms with. Usually it's anxiety. Less often it's guilt, because those two emotional states are as difficult as it gets to deal with. So we want to offload the energy. So getting angry at somebody, I know obviously in marriages it'll happen all the time.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So that's something that I will talk to people about, because because they can grasp that. Are you
Yeah.
sure that's what you're actually feeling, or is there an underlying thing going on here?
Yeah.
Because there may very well be, and maybe because you had mentioned before that this was going on, that sounds like it has legs.
Yeah.
So I think we should focus on that and see what we can do with that.
I did some reading. This is 10 years ago here. Brene Brown, just around the role that shame plays in our culture and that burden that so many of us carry around for whatever happened or whatever reason or whatever, just something, even our parents said something to us that stuck with us, that hurt. But that shame can form so many decisions and choices in our life. And I'm just curious, as a therapist, how you've seen that affect people. And if there's listeners that, are dealing with and carrying around shame, what's the first, second step to start walking out of that dark shadow?
If what well, let's separate shame into two parts.
Okay.
One is you did something that wasn't cool,
No.
right? And at some point, you need to forgive yourself about that, or apologize to other people. But other times, you've been duped into feeling ashamed about something that should never have happened. So you have to help them come to terms with, wait a minute, somebody put you into an open trance state, and it gave you a suggestion. You should feel ashamed about this when you shouldn't have. That wasn't your fault about having to deal with the choices that you have made. Those were your choices, and they were okay. They were yours. Nobody else got hurt, right? And okay, we all know that issues that people have with shame, but that's not, they shouldn't feel. So you go after helping them understand that's shame. No, that's
Yeah.
artificially induced. That's not real.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you have, I mean, that's not in a few sentences, in a
Oh, of
few
course.
words,
No,
but
but
over time, if you context it for them in that way, it can
yeah.
be useful
Yeah.
in freeing them up a little bit. But if they did something bad, then if they can apologize to whatever or whatever it was, to set into motion something that makes them feel a little bit better, then do it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
owe that person an apology.
Yeah.
Go
And it's
for it.
funny when you do, that weight just lifts. That weight
Oh
just
yeah.
lifts. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have them a little bit more control, but sometimes doing stuff ain't easy, as we all know.
Of course. Yeah. You know, just to stick on mindset real quickly, maybe it's through the work I've done with NLP and different things, but just really understanding identity. And, my definition is identity is how we see ourselves. Status is how we think other people see us, which, as you know, nobody cares about anybody but themselves. So nobody even cares about them, but that artificial status feeling. But identity, man, I've learned how strong it is. So I coach, I have franchisees. I coach franchisees because I own a brand, and then I help other business owners too through another business I have. And man, what I have found, Lloyd, is that people, like, especially a struggling small business owner, and there's a lot of them, their identity is that of a struggling small business owner. And so when I try to give them a 5-point plan or a tactical approach or a strategy to work their way to a better living and more successful business, I'm amazed at how often they'll fight that. But then I kind of had this epiphany that, well, wait, I'm trying to change their identity from a struggling to a
If you take
successful.
that away, what's going to be there? Right. So you got to get tricky there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. You are you usually sitting opposite people when you're doing this kind of
Usually
thing?
it's on the phone or Zoom, but
Oh,
sometimes it's in person. Sometimes it's in person. Yeah.
okay. Tell them to pull another chair over, stand up, sit in that chair, leave their current state of mind in the chair where they just got up, so you can talk to them in a different way.
Oh, I
Just
love
that
that.
little shift might
Yeah.
open up something in their brain.
Yeah. I love that. I love that because that's what I found I'm doing is I'm trying to change somebody's identity, which is not an easy thing to do because if that goes away, who am I?
I'm watching you right now, and if I needed a coach, I would have hired you 55 minutes ago. You're good.
That's
You're
great.
good. You're good. You're really good at this.
Well, thank you. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. Thank you. Well, if there's a lot of people listening, and if you could help them, if somebody wanted to make a change, and maybe maybe they want to quit smoking, they want to quit drinking, they want to work out, get in better shape, be a better listener with their spouse, whatever that may be. These are all habits. What is like a small but powerful thing to do to improve their mindset, which would change their performance? So if they're trying to change a habit or leave a habit behind, Lloyd, what advice would you give them for that first step? Because I think the first step is always the hardest.
I think you ask yourself, okay, we've been down this road before. Why is this time different?
Mm,
What is different about my life? What is different about me that I can commit and follow through when before I couldn't do this? Because I know this riff, right? You in my head right now who are riffing, we both know who you are, right? I need a slightly different riff, or I need a different way of, so maybe I'll sit in a different chair and think about this. Maybe I'll visualize myself doing this differently as opposed to being in the situation. Like watch myself on a movie in my head doing what I want to do and say, okay, can I do that even better than that? Anything that changes the rhythm of what you previously have done is going to help you. And we all know how easy it is to get stuck in the bullshit in our head.
sure, sure. I I just love that question to ask yourself. What is different about this time? Because if you can't answer that question,
You're not doing it. It
you're
won't
not
happen.
doing it. Yeah, don't beat yourself up because nothing's going to change. Um, I love that. I'm going to steal that. That's fantastic. That is fantastic.
Whatever you want, it's yours.
I love it. Well, I always in the podcast with like 3 questions that I'll ask you, and then of course I want people to find out where they can find your app and follow you or get in contact with you if they want to do some further work. But I would start off. The first one is I'm a big reader. I really believe that if you can read, then you have the power to learn anything you want to. I helped somebody in my early 20s. I helped the local city literacy program, and it just opened my eyes to wow. When somebody can't read, they're handcuffed in their growth in life and business and their personal life, all that. Once you can read, you can learn anything. So, and I'm sure you've read 1,000, 10,000 books, but is there one, especially on mindset, habits, you know, constructive thought that we've talked about today? Is there a book that you've read that really changed the way you thought about it and that you would recommend to the listeners?
Oh, that's a good question. Nothing immediately comes to mind, but in terms of the therapy sorts of stuff and what people typically look for, you started out the session. You mentioned NLP,
Yeah,
right? Which changed my thinking forever
yeah,
when I took one of the workshops and then got involved with the hypnosis part, as I mentioned before. So, but I have this belief, and the longer I live, the more I believe in it. When it comes to all of these theories and practices, to my mind, it all comes down to the person who is the practitioner and not the technique that they're using. Right. So if you find somebody, regardless of what clan they're part of, what psychotherapeutic clan, and they make you feel comfortable and you can sense that they know something, you're in good hands.
yeah, yeah. Great. All right. So this one's a little different. And not to be morbid, but let's say we fast forward to the end of your life, many, many years from now. But we're at your funeral and a loved one is reading your eulogy. And Lloyd, they're only allowed 3 words to describe you, to describe your life, your impact on them. Doesn't have to make a sentence or a phrase or anything, but 3 descriptors. What 3 words do you hope that loved one uses to describe the life you lived?
3 words. Give me a little bit of egotism here in the mix here.
Of course, this is your
Oh,
life.
smart, funny, nice. That's it.
Love it.
To my mind, those are the people I want to hang out with.
Yeah.
Right. And if you get friends who have those three characteristics, it's lifelong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was asked that question applying for like a leadership development course, and when I answered it made me realize, okay, then if those are my three words, my life should be focused on those three words. Like if I find myself going down a different path, no, let's get back to these three words, because it just really brought clarity to me. So I love asking guests about that. And then last one, another kind of hypothetical, but if I were to give you a magic wand and you could wave that magic wand today and make any change to the world, the way the world operates, the way people are, whatever it is, the way we talk to each other, whatever it is, but you could make one material change to how the world works and is. If I gave you that wand and you waved it tonight, when we wake up tomorrow morning, how is the world different according to you?
Every head of state has to be female.
I've never heard that answer before. I've asked this 160 times, and
period.
Yeah. And why?
Not because I know they can do better, but it's impossible to do worse. All right, that's why. Not a shredded doubt in my mind. They bring life into the world. They have a head start on us for what's important.
I love it. I love it. That's one of the most interesting answers I've ever heard. I've asked that question 160 episodes. That is fantastic. Most important question, Lloyd. One, where can people find your app? And
it's in the Apple.
Okay, App Store. Okay, and then if they wanted to get in contact or follow you or just learn more, where would they do that?
Like I have a phone number or I have an email address.
How about an email address? Yeah.
Okay. HPPCDS@gmail. Harry Paul Charlie David Sam @gmail.
Perfect. We'll put that in the show notes, just if somebody wants to reach out and potentially work with you one-on-one and stuff. I have thoroughly enjoyed this.
Me too.
You are those embodiment of those three words, and I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Hopefully, we will meet again.
Absolutely. To everyone else listening, remember, set your intentions for the day and strive to thrive. Thank you for tuning in to the ThriveMore podcast. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for any of the resources that we mentioned during the podcast. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you have access to the latest and the greatest. You can connect with me on any of the socials at Real Roger Martin. And be sure to check out our website, ThriveMoreBrands.com. There you'll find information on the brands we support and information on franchising. Thanks again for tuning in.